Guys, today's a good day. I'm usually not one to get excited, but today I'm excited. And the reason, we got progress done on the outfeed table, on dust collection. There's a lot of things that we got done in this video. Stay tuned and find out. I know the last video was on the table, the first video was on dust collection. It's because it all plays together. So I'm gonna show you what I'm working on here. You guys saw in the last video that I cut the top for this table, and I've got things framed up for shelving and storage. You can also see dust collection is going to get hard piped down through the bottom of the table. But since I'm building downdraft table into the top of this and I'm running 6-inch pipe to it, I need to get a 90 here. In previous video, guys talked about this 90 in this corner and how that limits airflow. So what I'm going to do is we're going to test the dust collection system with that 90 in place. We're going to swap it, put a pair of 45s in, and then do more tests and see if and how it changed airflow. So over here, what we're going to do, I'm going to run this surface here for the outfeed assembly table all the way to the wall. What I want to do is run this pipe down through the table. What that will do is give me a solid surface here. I won't have anything back there for stuff to fall behind and have to fish out. So next thing we're going to do is lay these out, and I'll show you an easy way to do that. All I'm going to do is put the pipe in place and use this piece of scrap wood. I'm going to put it over here, and when this is flush against the pipe and flush against the table, I know the pipe is at 90 degrees, everything's straight, and I can just mark at the base of the wood the location for the pipe. So let's get to it. Okay, so you can see I've made a series of marks. That's where the pipe will sit. And if I grab a piece of small pipe, I can go ahead and trace where that pipe will sit on the table, and I'll cut that out. So next we'll mark our 6-inch. Okay, so I've got a few marks here on the table for this 6-inch pipe. You can barely see them in the video, I'm sure, but they're there. And now we'll take the pipe, mark our locations, mark center, and hit them with the router. This is where we are right now. I've got the frame for this bottom shelf. It's framed up and ready to go. I've got 4-inch hole for dust collection. This will come from the table saw out of a 90, come down, and then down this trough that I've got here and go out to the dust collection system. Put some bracing in here, and I've got these leveling feet from Peachtree. So these are AMZ HD LEG. So they're just leveling feet. I'm going to put 4 of those in, get those installed, get that in this table, and then we'll get some more progress done here. A few things I want to show you here though that I didn't show in previous video. I was talking about the space from your work area to where you can reach and maximizing that. So I want to have storage on the front side of this table here under the overhang of the tabletop. So to get more storage there, what I did is I cut this 2x4 on the leg. I cut this guy so it nests under this rail on the table saw. I still have room to adjust it and level it with the feet. I just cut it and made sure that it sits under there. On this other end, I went ahead and set everything up so that this indexes right there on the corner of that rail. So anytime I come out, if I have for any reason to disassemble, to move the table, if I have to pull stuff out for whatever reason, it goes right back, it indexes here on that corner, it sits flush against the rail, and done. It's no hassle, no guesswork, nothing involved there. So let's get these leveling feet on, get this guy in there, and I'll show you what I've done with the tabletop, namely more dust collection. I've put 4-inch hole, 6-inch hole in here, so dust collection now comes through the top of the table. So let's get to it. So I've got these leveling feet from Peachtree Woodworking, and I really like these because I can mount them to the 2x4, put the screws in, and then use a hex key to adjust level from the top side of the surface. So as this is sitting on the ground, for this shelf, I can go from the top of the shelf with a hex key and adjust the table to level it. I like this better than having to reach under the table, especially in the far back corner. So with this, I can just go from the top of the shelf, make the adjustment, and keep going. These guys, they come with the hardware, they come with the hex key. These again are from Peachtree Woodworking, and the 4 of them, I actually bought 2 pair, I bought 8 of them. So it was $35.98 to get 8 of these leveling feet. I'm only going to use 4 on the table, but for what I'm doing here, it's fine. If I need more, I'll add them. So Peachtree Woodworking, AMZ HD LEG is the part number, and they are 36 bucks for 8. Okay, so right off the bat, if I wobble this, it's not level. So leveling this is as easy as just turning a screw from the top side, and now it's solid. So now that I've got these 4 leveling feet installed, you can see I've laid out lines here. These guys are for dust collection. I've got dust collection piping coming off the table saw, coming down and running out to the exit on the far end. These layout lines are so that I can cut the opening here for the table saw. As this dust collection sits here, it's going to come out of the saw and then kick down to this 45 that sits down on the ground. Now, raising and lowering this table, I'm fine right here if I lay that line out close to the piping. On this other side, on the bottom, I've got to have that line move further away from the piping so that as the table comes up, it doesn't contact the piping. I just need room for it there. So now I'm going to take the surface for this shelf, put it in place, lay it out, cut out the hole for this piping. Okay, so over here where I've laid this out, I put a 2.5 inch radius here on the back side of this, and I put a 2 inch radius on this side. This just cleans up the shelf, makes it look nicer, and you don't have these 90-degree corners here. It's just a cleaner look. Over here, I'm not worried about having the 90s because this is the back side. You're not going to see it. So now it's time to get the jigsaw, cut this guy, and then we'll move on. Alright, so now that I've got the leveling feet installed on this frame for the lower shelf, I'm going to flip this table on its side, drop this guy in place, make sure it's flush on the bottom, and that way all leveling is done at the feet and the table isn't assembled out of square or with one high corner. So let's go ahead and get that done. What are you doing? What are you doing? Oh. Really? What are you doing? So the next thing I want to do is remove this 90 from the system. That 90 is going to live right here on the downdraft sanding table. I'm going to plumb it from the bottom side of the gate. It's going to come down, hit the 90, and then come into the table where this downdraft will be. The reason I'm doing that is because people have talked about this 90. This is a restriction. I know Doug mentioned it, Joey, a couple of other guys have said that this is going to be a restriction on the system. I agree, but at the time, this was all I could get. I got 245s here. They didn't have more, so a 90 packaged it nice and tight in the corner. And then if you notice, when I laid this grid wall out, I have space. I allowed myself space to put a couple of 45s in. So move that 90, put it over here, and the only hit I'll take on dust collection will be at the downdraft sanding table that'll be in here. What I'm going to do before I remove it though is come over here at the furthest point in the system. This is where it feeds down to the lathe station. So what I'm going to do is make a measurement at the lathe station with that 90 in place, remove the 90, install it over here, drop the 245s over there, and then I'll make another measurement at the lathe station to see if there was a difference made between the 90 and 45, and if there is, how much an improvement did we get from it? So since I'm measuring at the lathe station, I'm going to go ahead and set this up for a 4-inch, sorry, I'm thinking while I'm entering this, I'm going to set this up for a 4-inch blast gate. Now, a 4-inch blast gate has an area of 0.087 square feet. So I'm going to go ahead and set the meter up for that. And we are going to set this up for measuring cubic feet a minute. And now we go make our measurement at the lathe station. So about 690 at the lathe station. So about 690 at the lathe station with that 90 in place. Now it's time to remove that 90, put the 45s in. So we got about 690 at the lathe station with that 90 in place. So now we're going to remove that 90, put the 45s in, and measure again. So now with our piece cut, we go ahead and assemble these two guys here. Got our 45s together. Now we need to go lay them out over here in the corner, mark our cut lines in the corner, and then move on to cutting these two pipes and fitting this 45 in place. Okay, so I'm going to show you what I did here. What I did is marked the approximate location of where I believe the cut is going to be on each of these pipes. I also marked the hard edge of the coupling of the pipe here and here. That way when I pull the pipes down and get ready to make my cut, I can lay out those 45s, look at exactly where they are, measure this distance in to here, know exactly where my cut line needs to be, and then I just cut them, fit them together, and it's going to be perfect. If you notice, when I cut that, I was putting the saw in the kerf of the blade. The reason for that is I can cut all the way around the circumference of this pipe with multiple cuts and have a nice flush edge on the end of this pipe. So there's one that is cut to length. Let's go ahead and get the other one marked and cut. and then it'll be time to move on. Now you notice while I'm using this saw blade and the curve of the cut to rotate this, you never want to stop when you're cutting PVC. You never want to stop it in the pipe. Always keep the blade running, bring it completely out of the pipe, then shut the blade off, then reposition for your next cut. So from start to finish, nice clean edge. So that didn't take long to do, but one thing I do need to do is I've had a leak right here. And the reason for that is these 45s, as they made up, you can see in there, that is not a tight fit at all. So all of this dust that you see here is because it has leaked out from this system. So I've had a leak here the entire time that the system's been in place. I always thought, you know, I'll fix it when I replace this 90. So today's that day. I did not make a measurement of how much of a leak I had before, but I'm just going to run the same thing as I did before on the blast gates. I'm going to run some hush mat, just trim it with a razor, and do the same thing we did at these guys to seal up the leak over here. So in addition to putting foam tape here, I'm also going to put a layer around this inlet on the impeller, because with the wall thickness between the 6-inch pipe and this impeller, I'm going to need 2 layers of foam. So I'm just going to wipe this down, a little rag with Windex on it, so get any dust off of there. Now, just like I discussed before on the blast gates, any leak or any flaw at a point that is common to the rest of the system is going to hurt every tool downstream in that system. So if you've got a leak at the impeller on your dust collection, well, that's obviously something that's going to hamper performance throughout the entire system. So something as simple as a little bit of foam tape, and we can go ahead and fix this problem. And now I can just clean that up. So now as a quick test, we will turn it on, see if we have a leak over here. If there is, you should hear it whistling. There's no whistling here, so there's no leak. And the next thing we'll do is come over here, fire up our anemometer, and make sure we are set to, oh, I gotta reset it. 008 7 square feet, and then we're going to go function, and we're going to measure cubic feet a minute. Now we're going to turn the system on and make our measurement at the farthest point of the system, just like we did before. We're going to measure right here at the lathe station and see what we get. So as you can see, we went from 690 cubic feet a minute to 806 cubic feet a minute. That's roughly a 16-17% increase. It's actually 16.8 if you do the math. And out-of-pocket cost to get that is two $12 pieces of 45 versus the single 90-degree piece that's about 12 bucks, and then a little bit of foam tape to seal at the inlet to the impeller. So the great thing about that is it's not just an improvement at the tool, it's an improvement at the entire system, because that leak was at the impeller that was on the main trunk of the system, and that restriction with the 90 is on the main trunk of the system. So it affected everything in the entire dust collection system. Since I moved that 90 over here to the downdraft table, any restriction created by that 90 is only going to be for the downdraft table. It doesn't affect anything else in the system, and I'm happy with it. Another 12 bucks and I get an additional 16% increase. Okay, so another bits and pieces scenario. That 90 that I took out here goes here, and the reason for that is I need it to tuck in tight on this table. So before I cut the piece up top, I need to go ahead and run 6-inch pipe through the table so that I can get that downdraft sanding table plumb. And with that 6-inch pipe located under here, that keeps this 90 in place. And then I just measure from the inside lip up to this gate, get the length for the 6-inch pipe to connect it to, and then to install that, I just pull the pipe out from the bottom, drop that, put the pipe in place, push it back up, and put my pipe back in. Nothing's glued, no adhesive, it's all dry fit. Okay, so our test pipe worked. I didn't have to recut it. I just wanted to test it, make sure it was going to fit. It fit properly. The 4-inch will go back in. On the bottom side, I went ahead and got the 6-inch connected to that elbow, so that 90-degree elbow is in place. And now I just make my cross braces for this second shelf, put the plywood on, and major framework on the table will be done. So before I put this in place for the final time, you can see I've got 2x8s ran around here, and I've got 2x4s here. So I'm going to go ahead and lift this top section off, replace these 2x4s with 2x8s, and then I'm going to put my cross bracing in on this second shelf, put the plywood in place, and then put this guy back in. But one thing I want to show you guys is that even though I hard piped from the table saw cabinet all the way to the blast gate, you may think it's a pain to work on, but watch. I come over here and I pull this free from the table saw. That was pretty quick. And I come over here at this 45 and I'm disconnected. At that point, I can just move the entire table and the dust collection moves with it. So now I have access to the entire table to work on. And again, even though everything is hard piped and in place, I thought this out to the point that I can have the entire system disassembled in 10 minutes. It's really easy to work on. So there we have it. Everything's plumbed. Table's ready to go. I've got storage on the second shelf. I've got storage on the bottom shelf. It's plumbed to the cabinet of the table saw, plumbed to the router, plumbed to what will be the downdraft table. Yeah, so everything's looking good. I'm not a huge fan of this step right here, but I do know that when I add the second layer of this outfeed table, it'll come up 3/4 of an inch, so it won't look as bad. But there it is. It's set up, ready to go. Now I can actually feel like I've made progress. I do have one more thing to add right here before I'm done with this video, so let's get to that. But today what I'm going to do is build some storage on the side of this table. Now, I don't know if you guys have seen them, but the Paulk work tables, they're built for contractors. What Ron Paulk sells the designs for $10, and it's a 2-piece 4x8 table that you can assemble and disassemble on sawhorses. It has storage built inside, stuff like that. I'm not building a table to disassemble, but I do like the storage that is designed into the side of them, so I'm going to go ahead and incorporate that into this table. And over here on the side, where this table saw, the cabinet opens up, I'm also going to put a little bit of storage on this side, and I may put something up here in this gap between that cover and the table. So let's get to it. So here's the storage for this side of the table. You guys know tape measures always disappear, and I've got wood glue there, pencils, Sharpie, snap knife. Another thing that disappears for me, safety glasses. So with this, I can just, everything I'm using at the assembly table, if I'm doing layout, measuring, whether it's here at the router table, whatever I have, easy storage, easy access, this is where they should always go. I'm actually missing one right now. I've got a 16 footer that I can't find. So there it is. It's pretty simple. I was gonna do a third shelf under here, but when I decided to do the 8-inch, the 2x8s up top, that gave me the idea of running 8-inch Paulk storage here. And I love the storage idea on the side of this. It's open, it's not a drawer. And the reason for, if you guys remember, the reason for setting this 2x4, cutting it and tucking it under the table, is that 1.5 inches that I gained by moving it was used right here on the storage side. So every little thing, detail, I've obsessed over, and it's finally getting to the point that it's ready to be a functioning space. As you guys saw when I was cutting and assembling the pieces for that top section out of 2x8s, I had to work on the floor because I didn't have an area large enough to work on something that big. So now that I have this table connected to the outfeed table, I have that. So at this point, any work I need to do on the bottom side of the table, it's just a quick disconnect for dust collection. You guys saw how long that took, not long at all. And then once I test and figure out exactly the design for the sanding table, that will go in as well. I've also got this guy here to add more storage to this side. It's cut out so that when the cabinet of the table saw, when I open that to get inside, it's got a recessed area there, so that tucks in. And if you look, this piece on the end, it has a hole in it because the layout and the location for this hole was before I made this change and moved the table over 1.5 inches. So at the other end, this hole is 1.5 inches moved, to the left, so that it lines up and everything's nice and straight down there. All right, guys, so there it is. In this video, we went from 690 cubic feet a minute over here to 806 just by replacing the 90 in the corner with 245s. We sealed at the inlet to the impeller. We got the 90 installed over here on the downdraft table. Got Paulk storage added here. We put 2x8s in up top. Got bracing in for the second shelf with the 2x4s, and got the top of the shelf on. And so as a whole, the shop is ready to go. I can go ahead and add this second layer, the MDF top, now if I want to, but I'm not going to, because when I add the downdraft table and some other things here, I'm going to need to work on the 2 separate layers. And I would rather lay everything out here, get everything built, and then add the second layer as everything's finalized and I'm ready to go. So there it is. I know this was a long video. It's a little over 45 minutes, but there was a lot of information, a lot of things we covered, and I didn't want to shortcut things. I've found that as an instructor, people learn usually one of 3 ways. They learn by seeing. They can just see a picture and they can infer how you got from point A to point B. The other way they learn is through repetition. A lot of times you have to repeat things to people, and a lot of times people learn just by watching you go through the process, and then some people need an explanation. So when I do these videos, I try to show the process, explain the more detailed points of things, and then, hey, you can watch it as many times as you want if you need repetition. So there it is. The shop is getting there. It's not far from being done. This table, there's a lot of things I still want to add to it, but we'll do that in the next videos. See you guys later.